Good morning, everyone. It's like people are continuing to join us. I want to welcome you all. I see a lot of names of friends who joined us earlier today for a Rockin' Tefillah and Shira, so I want to welcome you back. I want to let you know that our guest educator, Nancy, will be back with us in just a minute. She was having a little bit of technical difficulty and had to restart. So she'll be jumping back in a minute. Aaron Solomon is on with us, and Temple Emanu-El of Westfield is Jackie G and Mia, who we owe everything to, mostly Mia for lending us her mommy at all hours of the day and night. Mia is now waving and delicious. So I want to let you know that we are going to be doing this webinar style, which means we will not be able to see you. We have a chat box, and I'm going to invite you, if you need to be in touch with us, to use that chat box. We are learning very quickly from our students that that is a really fun way to connect. So I'm going to also ask you, if you want to chat privately with one another, to do that, you can actually select with whom you are speaking, and to save your chats for the all panelists. If you just tap that arrow, you can select who you're talking to, all panelists and attendees, or all panelists. I'm going to ask you to please chat. Hi, Nancy.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. No worries. We're having lots of those this morning, and I was just sharing with our families how we're going to use this chat box to connect with one another, since this is a webinar and we won't be able to see them.
Okay. I can see Temple Emanu-El, Westfield, and Sam. Hi.
Yep. And are you able to see me as well?
No.
Uh-oh.
Wait. Hold on. Yes, I can.
Excellent.
So do you, real quick question. What do I do with my PowerPoint? Do we want people to see my PowerPoint?
That would be excellent. You should see your little green, it's a box and it has an up arrow and it says share screen.
I know, but then I have everything on my whole life on here.
Okay.
Shoot.
So
but if I make this bigger, wait, I can
to share the whole desktop.
Yeah, so when you click share screen, it should give you the option of like which application you want to share.
Okay, here we go. Share, tell me if you see my whole life. Oh, I love it. Okay, I'm sharing. Did it work? It should work. Share screen. No.
You're good. Yes, you're good.
Now I lost you. Oh, here you guys are.
Oh, hey.
Okay. So here's a question, since the whole world has gone insane. You only see my green thing?
We can see your only this application. This is your presentation, the PowerPoint, and it is in outline view right now. So we can see the slides at the corner on the side, but we can also see your main presentation.
So how do should I just put it into slideshow?
You can put it into slideshow, yes.
I'm getting good at this year. Nope, that didn't work. You still see it, don't you? You still see the sides?
Yes, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's totally fine.
Okay, we're gonna. So how many people do we have, or do we?
There are. It looks like there are 36 other participants on, and more people are joining.
Okay.
So as people are jumping, yep, we can see you. Everything is great.
Okay.
And as people are jumping on, I'm letting everyone know we are going to be using the chat box to communicate.
Good.
Aaron and I are going to be on the chat box, and I will either wave to you or I will unmute myself to let you know if we have a question.
So I won't see the questions?
You can see the questions.
Yeah,
the questions are popping up in the chat box, and you
so
should be able to see the chat box.
So how come I'm not seeing the chat box right now? Do I need to hit?
If you just mouse over the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little bar that'll come up. It says participants, Q&A, share screen, chat.
I have the box. Q&A. We want to hit Q&A.
Nope, you're going to hit the chat box. It's like a little talk balloon and it says chat.
So weird. I did this the other day, but I don't have.
When you're sharing your screen, I think the chat box goes to the top.
I got it. Sorry. Okay. Hello. That's perfect because I think what's really important today, and you all tell me if you think differently, but I think I want people to feel like they can bring us their questions, right?
Yeah.
And really, like, I have all this, but really, I think we want to get to their questions and I can answer and sort of be where they're at. And I think it's so beautiful that you all are doing this for your community because, like, the crises that I was on the phone till 10 o'clock last night with families in crisis. And yes, they're crises, but it's so much anxiety, right? And I understand it. So how are you guys all doing?
Yes, we are good, and we are really thankful to you for being with us today so that we can share with our families some really important tools on how to care for our children and also to care for ourselves. It's a different kind of time. So I'll let you know by way of introduction to today where people are coming and joining us from, and then I think we can go ahead and get started.
Do I have a funky glare, or are you good?
No, I think everything's great. You look gorgeous.
Oh no, you saw me 3 minutes ago at wet hair now.
So some of our community have just joined with our cantor for morning prayer and song, and we had a story. My favorite Jewish folktale, It's Too Crowded in Here. And it's also sometimes called It Could Always Be Worse. And so I want to make sure, like you do, that we have our families get a lot of time to be able to check in with you and ask questions. So I'm going to just remind everyone by way of welcome that we are in webinar mode, which means we will not be able to see any of you. You will be able to see Nancy's screen. You'll be able to see those of us who are hosting. And you'll be able to chat with us using the chat box. Please don't use the Q&A box. We want to keep all of our conversations in one place. So the chat box is the one that looks like one talk bubble. That Q&A you should see is two talk bubbles coming from different directions. We're going to use the chat box for this. Laura Leibowitz says, hello to my childhood friend.
Makes me cry every time, right?
So we are unable to see all of you, but we can definitely feel the love in this chat box. We'll be able to hear your questions through the chat box. Nancy, I am happy to moderate those and help you so that you can navigate your screen, and I'll let you know when we have a question. Friends, I want to welcome you to our Youth Learning and Engagement parent gathering. For those who are new to Youth Learning and Engagement, or who are just joining us from other parts of our Temple Emanu-El community, my name is Abra Lee. I'm the Director of Youth Learning and Engagement. And hidden on screen is Jackie Gruscott, who is ruling our world with all of her technological skill, our communications manager, who is also caring for an infant while she's doing all this. Our coordinator of youth and family engagement is Aaron Solomon. He is one of our panelists today, and he'll be helping to moderate that chat. And while her video is not yet on, she's coming back from some technical difficulties from the previous two meetings we had. Samantha Eichert is the Assistant Director of Youth Learning and Engagement, and she'll be joining us shortly. So without any further ado, welcome, Nancy.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Abra, and your crew for inviting me. This certainly wasn't what we thought we were doing a couple of weeks ago when we planned this, but I'm so glad that I can be with you all, and I just hope this time together is whatever you need it to be this morning. I am here to answer your questions, to share with you in your fear, your concerns, and to me, this is ultimately what our community is about. And I'm Nancy Kislin. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, family marriage and family therapist. Sorry, early morning for me. And I have a private practice in Chatham, New Jersey. I grew up in North Brunswick, and my wonderful Rabbi Bennett Miller, I've been sharing with you all this past year. So I'm so excited for you all. I think it's important because we were going to talk about how to talk to your kids about lockdowns and school violence. And who knew 2 years ago when I started on my path, my journey of writing my first book called Lockdown, did we know that 2 years and a few weeks later we'd be in lockdown? And what I found was so many of my talking points, and I can talk another time about school lockdowns, but so much what I found from thousands of interviews with parents and educators and children, as well as my 30 years of working with children, that my tips, whether we're talking about the lockdown that I originally wrote about or what we're going through now, is really pretty similar. It's parenting. And I believe to start this conversation, I need to ask you all, how are you doing? I know that's a big question. But if anyone wants to just type in, right, they can just type in, how are you doing? So I'm imagining, because I know how I'm doing, anyone stressed, can they raise their hand by clapping? I don't know if this technology, but a lot of us are stressed, fearful. You put the words in there, anxiety, frightened, all those words. And then you have, and we have that responsibility, whether it be we're worried about our children, and it could be our children who are my age, or it could be our younger children, or like myself, I'm worried about my parents and my mom and my daughters. So all that is a lot. So let's start with, let's take a few deep breaths. And if you're comfortable, and you're in a seated, comfy position, just start with closing your eyes. Just take a few deep breaths in and out. In and out. And if you're comfortable, I sometimes put my hands right over my heart, and I just comfort myself. And I just close my eyes, and I take some deep breaths in and out. And I imagine that I open to the amazing energy, whatever your belief system is, God, universe, and I just allow this beautiful energy to come in and move through me. And I imagine that my feet have roots like a big, beautiful tree and go deep into the earth's surface. And when that light comes in with my breath and exhale, I let go of anything and everything that isn't serving me right now. So that might be all this anxiety, all these feelings of overwhelmed. We can't go like this and make it all go away, but we do have the power to release and breathe. And the amazing thing is when we take deep breaths, it is almost impossible to keep having anxiety. It'll come back in a second. But my hope is, and what I teach so many of my clients and my parents that I work with is, in that breath work, we become more conscious of choice. That you have the choice. Do I want to go back to that anxious, swirling thoughts? Or do I want to focus on my breath and then come back to my center? And now I'm in a better place to take care of myself and my children and my world. So, is that a good way for us to get started? Just to come from a more grounded place. So I start this with, how are you taking care of yourself right now? I don't know about you, but I got a lot of Jewish guilt that hangs over here and over here, right? Oh my gosh, Nancy, I can't take care of myself right now. I have all these people that I have to take care of. Stop, breathe. Some people put their hands here, whatever's good for you, and breathe. What do they say? And most of us tune it out when we're on an airplane, right? That we're supposed to put the oxygen mask on ourselves before we can help those around us. Same thing now, self-care. I'm giving you all permission for now more than ever. I want you to be very conscious of your self-care. What does that look like? For me, I'm never the best at having a set time to meditate, but I'm doing it now because I really have no excuse not to, right? But I do it 10 minutes in the morning, some point in the afternoon if I'm feeling just totally overwhelmed, or I feel like so many people are plugged into me and I'm getting up there all anxious. Close my eyes, even if I'm sitting in my chair, regroup. Self-care, I'm gonna go through a couple things. Exercise, we all know that. So one of my neighbors asked me last night, she goes, "What's wrong with you? You're always outside walking." Yes. If I'm not on with a client, I'm pretty much outside these days because it's just so much easier and it's moving and it's calming. Nutrition, we can get more into this, but self-care, warm baths, lavender baths, all those kinds of things. And when I say self-care, I want you to think about this, that your children are watching you. It's so important. And it's not guilt. It's nothing like that. It's that I respect myself so much. I respect our family, this community that we're in, and that I know for me to stay strong and help you all, I need to take care of myself. And I'm going to honor myself. So I'm going to pause there because I do see a lot of questions. So is there anyone that jumps out at you that someone wants us to getting outside looks good?
Nancy?
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge that in our community, we have a lot of people who are on the front line. Cara Barnett actually is one of the many physicians in our group. And, you know, she's talked about how challenging this is because she's right there on the front lines and doing what we need her to be doing. And then she still has her family at home who need her. And so, Cara, thank you for reminding us of that. And, you know, we have so many caregivers and people who are really on the front lines in combating this right now. And I want to just acknowledge and appreciate all of them.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing that and for doing what you do. There are no words for people who really are on the front lines taking care of all of us. And I would say for you, and I'd be happy to, if you want to reach out to me to just help you a little more, but it's really your self-care is so critical right now because you can only help as many people if you're strong. And so I'm going to shut my office door. Hold on a sec. Sorry, everyone.
And while Nancy is stepping away, I want to acknowledge also Martin Goldman, Aaron's dad, is a high school teacher, and he brings mindfulness and breathing regularly into his learning space. It's important now to do that. Thank you, Martin. And Janet and Alice and Karanek are talking about daily exercise, getting out for walks, and it's so important that we do that now because of the amount of time that we are spending in front of screens. If you wear one of those devices like I do that tells you it's time to breathe, and by the way, when was the last time you got out of that chair? Let's not forget to do that for ourselves.
Yes, so important. So I will say that I have lived in my little neighborhood for 15 years now, and I have seen people that I've never even knew lived here. Other than Halloween, I didn't even know that I lived with neighbors. And so I find how do we enjoy that part and talk, but not talk too closely. So I'm not going to read through this because you all can just glance through, but the key line is urge to panic. And that is so tempting, right? It's so tempting. Turn on the news for 2 seconds and it's at this crisis level. And I find that I've had to stop my news consumption by this much. I just watch the headlines a few times a day, and that's really all I need. And that I found that the kids are watching and hearing more than you imagine. The first 10 minutes of my calls, because I've taken all my clients now online, either FaceTime or regular phone. And they're like, oh my God, like last night, oh my God, my mom is crazy. She can't stop talking about it. Everyone she's on the phone with, she's talking about it, talking about it. And this isn't a little kid. This is a big kid. They're listening. They're watching. And I'm not saying you're not entitled to vent and have your space, but do it away from your kids, right? Because they're listening. So how are you guys all doing? See if anyone who has college kids who are home, how's that going for you? Is that going well? What are the challenges? Any questions there? Another big one is, oh my gosh, I haven't seen my spouse this much in 20 years. And how's that going? Why I shut the door is someone downstairs in my house is unloading the dishwasher, even though I told them I was on here, so I apologize for that. But it's that kind of sharing of space. Anyone have a question? The other is, how are you dealing, and we can get into this later or right now, is the struggle with your children, whatever age, on screen time, because that has to be a really scary thing. So I see a couple questions popping up there. Anyone that we want to share? That the social life for kids. Let's talk about that for a second. So thank goodness they all know how to spend endless hours on their phones. So they really can get their social needs met, or some of them met, through that. So I would say I'm not advocating for you to tell them off screens altogether. I'm saying have a conversation about it. So let's go to next screen so we can go a little deeper. Before I get too deep into it, I want to see, let's just talk about your anxiety for a sec, assuming you have anxiety. We can call it fear, uncomfortableness, whatever you want to call it. We, as people, don't like that we can't control things, right? That's something that's certainly coming up for me. That we're worried, like I said, about the upper generation, our children, that we don't know how long the schools are going to be closed for. That's uncertainty. And I made a joke, but it's true. There's no more antibacterial wipes. But I don't know about you, but I've been finding nice ways to keep the house clean without using those wipes. So how are you really feeling? And your homework, sometime today, in the next week, when you're all by yourself, take a few minutes, and I want you to sit with yourself and ask yourself these questions. How am I really feeling? Create space to allow the anxiety, the fear to come up. I'm not going to take you somewhere you haven't already been in your mind. I'm just challenging you to allow that to come up. See it, feel it, however you experience it, and then use your breath. And if you need more meditation work, there's so many amazing apps out there and videos that I know you know how to access. And let it go. Figure out ways you want to deal with it. Like we talked about, exercise, nutrition, journaling, meditating, talking to old friends, connecting to people you've lost touch with. And then get into the nitty-gritty. What are you really worried about? Are you worried about your health? Are you worried if you get it? Are you worried? And see how far do you go down the line. Oh my gosh, you went there so fast. Okay, now pull yourself back. What can you control with your health and your family's health? Oh, I can wash my hands. I can keep people from going out. I can take walks, but make sure I'm still 10 feet away from people. I want you to focus on those things that you can actually control, because that is so important. Okay, you're worried about your finances. Totally understandable. Is it fear based out of all the noise you're hearing in the external world? Okay, maybe you need to sit down and write out your finances. Sit down with your partner, your children. Look at however it is in a way that is calming, not reactive. And then, of course, I know so many people are worried about their work and do they have a job? If that is the situation, what for you that, hey, I might really be losing my job, or my hours are going to be cut back, or I just don't know. What can you do right now in this time that you have at home that can help support your career? And be creative. This is a time, if we use it, that's incredibly creative. I know that there's moments I go to, oh my goodness, I haven't been in my office for a week and a half, to, wow, who knew I could have so much fun doing these webinars? Like, let's do this. So be creative. So, I hope that's helpful. Let's go to the next one. We talked about self-care. I heard a clip this morning on one of the news shows that it's so tempting for everyone to go to those comfort foods and to buy, like, I don't know if you've been in the stores in the last couple of weeks, but if you look in people's carts, am I the only person who does that? But if you look in people's carts and you're like, oh my goodness, right? But what do we really need right now? We need those nutritional foods. Somebody posted on my Instagram thread this morning that in this town near here, there was a truck from one of the big wine stores, and that this house was getting cases of wine. Okay, I'm not judging, but I hope there was some nutritional food in there too. Maybe, right? And again, our children are watching, or are they? Okay, so before I go to the next slide, any questions or questions about anxiety? Feelings, is anyone feeling just totally controlled by their anxiety, by their fear? What's that? So as people are typing in on with children, and again, this can be if you have children, whatever age, in their 30s all the way 40s down, and what is your intent? That's something I say a lot in my work, is what is your intent? If I'm checking in with my mom, what is my intent? Is it to share with her how scared I am about all these things? That's probably not helpful for her or me. What's my intent? Am I just checking in with her to pass some time, to make sure she knows she's loved and thought of? What's my intent when I go to my children? Am I reactive, coming from fear and all this noise, or what's my goal? What do I want to have them, what do I want their experience of me to be? So one of the things I know, it's really tempting to just always have, I have my phone way too close all the time. We all do right now. But when you have those, I like to call them sacred conversations. I beg you to put your technology away and make eye contact. Years ago, I started doing all these parenting forums, and I used to start with close your eyes, do a little breathing, and then I would ask people, when is the last time you looked in your children's eyes? What do you think I got? I would get almost the whole audience would raise their hand. I would say, in the last hour, in the last day, in the last 3 days. You know why I stopped doing it? I stopped asking that question because sometimes I would actually start to cry, because there would be parents in the room who couldn't remember a week or longer maybe that they had even looked in their children's eyes. So I decided that wasn't a good question, because I was probably making people feel bad, as opposed to lift them up and say, yes, so here's my little story is to remind you to be present. Look into your child's eyes. Assess how they're doing. How are they feeling? Don't project onto them. Oh my God. Get curious. Assess. Hey, I noticed that you really enjoyed that walk we took yesterday. Do you want to take another walk? Acknowledge their feelings. I don't know about you, but I have a bad habit of always rushing in to be fix it mom, fix it person. Right now, you can't fix the enormity of what's happening. Get curious with what's your child's experience of it. What are their fears? And then validate that experience. Question? No? Okay, so then we are creating Before I go to the next here, I want to also say, I'm hearing some of you in my head like say, oh yeah, sure, my kid really wants me to look in their eye and really spend time with them. Are you kidding, lady? So the question is, what do you do with that? And here's an idea, is don't expect this to happen overnight, right? I don't know what your patterns were before this, but I can just coach you on what to do now. And how do we use this as an opportunity that we're building a solid foundation. We're building a new foundation. The way that you parented before this lockdown may have to change. In all ways, it really needs to change. Our whole parenting paradigm is shifting, and it happened overnight. So I want to help you is how do you shift with it? So before I go into this slide, I'm going to tell a story. I'm a big storyteller. So I'm talking on a group chat yesterday with some of my old friends, and somebody has kids who are younger than mine, and she shares a story that I thought was fabulous. She said, my kids and I, we all work and we're all busy and no one ever has time to have dinner together. So I came up with this great idea, my girlfriend says, and I've been having every dinner is in the dining room. And she says, I set the table, I even have candles, I use all the nice china. And all of a sudden I have 3 teenagers that aren't rushing to jump out of the table, who aren't necessarily fighting with each other the way they used to. And all of a sudden we're having nice conversation and dinner. And I thought, brilliant idea, because from the stories I've heard before that, that wasn't a typical night maybe in her house all the time. So I thought that is a great example. Why do I love that example? For the obvious reasons, but for a layer underneath, what I think about is respect, that mom and dad are creating this kind of sacred space around the dining room table of mutual respect. I respect you so much, I want to make this pretty. How do you respect me? You respect me by sitting at the table and spending time with me. How do you respect me? You help me bring the plates in after dinner. How do I respect you? I make something I know you really like. You get the drift, right? So we're creating this mutual respect as opposed to, it's 5 o'clock. Did you do your SAT tutoring? We're late for swim practice. Boom, boom. I always say to parents, there's such this on a scale, the parent telling the kid what to do and the kid being annoyed that the parent's always telling them what to do and feeling stressed is right there. This is our chance to find that balance. So one of the other things I like to say, and I think I'm a little out of order here, is this is advice I've given for 30 years, is have a family meeting. So now you pick the night because our lives are different, but I would used to recommend Sunday night, sit down for hopefully a family meal. After the meal, someone come with a notebook, someone be the quote secretary, recording secretary, and take notes. And in that you go through the logistics of the week, who in a typical week, who's going where, who needs what. But now, because life is different, I still want you to have that family meeting. And I want to talk about meals, talk about what food we have, what food we don't have, and how are we going to make compromises. Talk about chores. I know it's such a dirty word and people get really mad at me when I say it, that their kids are too busy to do chores. Oh my goodness, I get really upset with that. But now there's no excuse. Chores. I want you to write that in big Sharpie marker. Chores. And then instead of you telling your child what you want them to do, remember you're sitting all together. The goal here is to have buy-in. I'm the parent. I say, hey, I've been meaning to clean out that closet downstairs in the basement. I'm going to put that on the list. Anyone want to help me with the closet? Oh, okay, child 1. What's on your list? Oh, I probably might need help in my room. Again, some child might not say that, but you can word it in a way that you're getting their buy-in. hey, I was noticing that we haven't gone through your closet in a while. Do you think that's something we could put on the list, right? That's another one of my tricks all the time. Instead of saying you haven't done something, pushes down, smushes their energy. And use the I realize, I noticed. Because what happens when I say I make myself more vulnerable. I make myself real. I'm a real person instead of a screaming parent telling their child what they need to do or don't do. So that family meeting is so critical. Can I ask out there, is there anyone who uses the family meeting over time, or your version of the family meeting? So as I'm waiting, the other thing that I urge you to talk about at the family meeting is this slide. TV, screen time. So we all know that's really hard, and I would define screen time and break it down to TV watching individually, TV watching with their friends, TV watching as a family. I would break it down. Then I would put social media. Then I would also put YouTube, depending on the age of your child, but I know people who put YouTube on for 2-year-olds all the way up. I would add homework time. That's a separate little line item. What am I missing? So I'm sure I'm missing something else. Oh, just hanging out, whether they're on all the different apps where there can be host party, I think house party, or these different things where they're all together. So we can't just talk about screen time as one big thing, because I know I have many kids freaking out at home that I work with who are like, my parents are always screaming for me to get off the screen. That's not speaking their language. Their language in their head is broken down into all these different ways. Make sense? So in that, I would use myself again and say, hey, I noticed I've been spending wasted time going through Instagram. Is this how I want to spend my days right now? So I'm going to allow myself to have an hour this week for social media, or 15 minutes a day. And then I'm going to put that down. Then let the next person go. And a great tip I use all the time, and it's a true story. I was sitting years ago with a 7th grade boy whose parents brought him in because he was self-isolating, and all he was doing was playing video games. And he had, quote, friends, but they were virtual friends. And I spent a couple of weeks trying to get through to this young man, and I wasn't succeeding. So this one day, I said to him, let's do an experiment. Help me out. And I said, how many hours when you're in school do you spend gaming? Let's just say 5 hours a day. Okay, on the weekend, 12 hours a day. Okay, I'm not going to do the math that fast, but usually I can. So that's 24 hours on the weekend. You do the math during the week. I add it up, I pull it up, and I say, oh, so in your 13 year on this planet, if this math is correct, you are going to spend roughly 3.5 months of your awake time with your head staring at a screen. You know what happened? He started to cry. And then we got to work. And I think this is, use my story any way you want. Use that experiment, that work with your kids. So I had a family the other day I checked in with, and they said they can't get their middle schooler out of her bedroom. She's 13. What do you mean you can't get her out of the bedroom? I get why you can't get her out of the bedroom, but go back to that family meeting and get the buy-in, because our kids are smart. They don't want to be wasting their life. They're bored, they're lonely, they're scared, they're confused. Anyone have any questions on that? Yep.
I had a friend, Nancy, who said to me the other day, this is a person who works from home and has been working from home for a very long time. But somehow this week has been different. And she said, I can't get out of my bed. I haven't been in my home office. I'm laying in my bed with my laptop. I'm changing from, daytime pajamas to nighttime pajamas. And I think that that's a lot of what I'm hearing from parents who are struggling right now. Even people who have a lot of their daily routine in the house. This just feels different for people right now.
Sure, sure. So, I'm so glad you brought that up. That's a great thing for us to talk about. So you can't tell, but I have work clothes on. I have my work pants on, my work boots on, nice top, makeup, because I want to get dressed for you, but I also knew that it helps me get in that professional zone for you all. And I respect you, but I also respect me and what I need. So one of the things is, and I know it's hard, so I'm going to talk about the suggestions first, and then we'll go to sort of what are the challenges, what are the things that may be blocking the people from doing it, right? So you've all probably heard this, but have a set schedule. So at that family meeting, I would talk about what is bedtime, what is the time we're all getting up, what is mealtime, instead of having a house of grazers. Like I just have two adult child who moved back in last night, and I was like, the kitchen's not open all day because it'll make me crazy personally, just constant movement. So have that schedule. Again, you can be a little flexible, but start with something. Okay, we want to wake, we can get up at 8 o'clock. You know what? If everyone's good with 8 o'clock, as maybe those kids, those high school kids can really just get up at 9 o'clock. That's up to you. But I'm talking more thinking of your friend. 8 o'clock, that's okay. At 8 o'clock, can she do I know there's so many different workout studios that are giving free online classes. If you need any suggestions, you can email me afterwards. There's so many shows on that are giving you free exercise. Somehow, I want you to create space for either a little meditation in the morning, a little exercise in the morning, something self-care. Some people like to journal in the morning, or that helps them shower, get dressed. So now let's stop that for a second, go back to your friend. Gee, what do you imagine she would say when I just said that? I made it seem so easy, just go and do it. What do you think? What do you think she would say?
Right. I think for the most part, the conversations that we've had are, yeah, I just need to get past this bump. But the bump is going to continue to move out based on what we're hearing in the news for the last, maybe 24 hours. So I think that we need to, I think we need to remove the bumps. And she's starting to realize that she needs to establish schedule. One of the things that was in the chat box was, what a question about the suggested, like a sample agenda for family meetings. Like, how do we establish a schedule and how do we set up these family meetings so that they feel, I can imagine my teenagers rolling their eyes. I can actually see it happening right now. So what do you suggest for that?
I think that it's awesome. Let them roll their eyes. Use laughter, use humor. That is our best tool right now, and it's free. Right? So I want them to laugh because that is great because, hello, this is like weird times. Let's all admit this is weird times. Okay, so we're going to try and make the best of it. And how are we going to do that? Maybe one of the agenda items is who's in charge each day for making sure something wacky or something funny or we have some humor in the day. Right? So that could mean one kid can be in charge of a joke of the day, right? It sounds silly. Or someone can find the funniest video on YouTube. Something like that, which brings you all together and acknowledges that, yay, humor is Somebody, an old friend, my friend who's on here, she probably saw this too. An old friend of ours from synagogue, lives in Israel, and she was always a little funny, to say the least. And she's been doing the most hysterical videos every night. She posts, at least our time, she posts them, and she does these funny things for her grandchildren that are all over wherever they are. Excuse me. And we all just laugh to it. That's great medicine, right? So if we go back to the agenda, how do we do that family member meeting? And I would say the key thing in there is don't take it too seriously. This isn't, you're not at your corporate job right now. This is just, the overall goal is to build family communication, right? Family communication. And this is just a structure that is helping you and them, because I'm going to say this a few times this morning, is what do our children need so much? Our children, just like us, need to know that we're safe. And we are safe, and we have to remind them that they're safe. And here are the ways that we're keeping you safe. We're staying in, we're making sure there's food, and you know what? We're also focusing on our emotional and our mental health. Here's one of the ways. Now, blame it on some lady. I took this webinar and she said we should do a family meeting. Let's try it. Let's see. You would be surprised. Let the kids roll their eyes. Don't take it personally. Put your ego out of this. Shelve it. And just be, you need to give them structure. Somebody posted on my Facebook page last night that their child just finished doing their school work for the day, and now they were laughing. And I looked closer at the video because it was so nice to hear this kid laughing, but then I stopped. You know what I saw? I saw that the child was still in pajamas. I saw that the child was lying in bed with their laptop, and I thought, I'm not being judgy here. I don't mean it to be, but that means that the child just did hours of schoolwork, maybe, sitting in her or his bed. Why is that not so good for us? You know why, right? And that's just, we need to have that break between day and night and school, all those things. And the hard thing for our kids is, anxiety for a lot of these kids is, will I get into college? Will I get good grades this year? Will I fall behind, right? So they need that structure. They might not know how to do it, but they need you to help them do it. So is there, I see a couple of questions there. No. Nope.
People are sharing what they're doing as far as keeping routine and reminding one another how important it is to keep a normal schedule in maintaining some sense of social normalcy or other kind of normalcy. We need our schedules.
Right. I think we talked about some of these. In that schedule, right? In that schedule time, I think it's important to, if you glance through my tips for managing anxiety, is to put in times for that. I mean, it sounds silly, but I recommend this all the time. It's not wrong. It's not bad. I really don't like using that word bad with children. It's not bad when a child has anger or frustration. Well, our job as the parent is to help them find appropriate ways to release that anger and frustration, right? So, wow, you're so frustrated that your senior prom was canceled, that you can't go play with your friends who are the two brothers across the street. You want to go play with them and you don't understand why you can't, and you're so angry. Remember, join them where they're at. They're so angry. Don't try to talk it away. I like pillows. Pillows are safe. Here are things we can punch. If you have a punching bag, go for it. Pillows are really good. We don't, depending on how old the people are, we don't punch people, we punch pillows. What help your child have a conversation of, what do you do when you're really angry? What are some things that work? Mom, I just punched the pillow for a half hour and it did nothing. Okay, I'm so glad you tried it. Maybe try it tomorrow and see if it helps tomorrow. I think one of the challenges is that we have been so programmed as parents to want to fly in and swoop in and fix everything. Here's a chance for us to not be the fix-it person, because so what if your kid is really angry for a little while? Can you tolerate their frustration? That's the question. Oh, but Nancy, you don't understand. He screams so loud for so long. He's so difficult. Okay, my question to you is, what are you going to do so you can take care of yourself, so you can respect and manage and put structure? You know what? If I'm talking to that child, it seems like you're still really angry. Well, here's the thing. You can be angry. Here are some things you can do, or you can think of your own. But if you're that angry, you cannot scream in our public space. You need to go off to your bedroom. You can shut your door and you can be angry there. So there, I'm still honoring the way they feel. I'm still acknowledging it. But what am I doing? I'm setting boundaries. Why are boundaries so important? Because that makes the child feel so much safer. And they're also seeing you in control. That makes them feel safer too. Does that help? We
have a question, Nancy.
Sure.
How to transition from anger expression back to calmness when they get into the anxiety zone and have trouble changing states? How do we do that for them?
So how do we say it again? Sometimes so they go from anxiety, anger.
How do we transition from them expressing their anger back to calm again?
So the first question I would ask you is, how long are you allowing them to be angry? It's not a trick question. It's just something to think about, right? I know that with one of my children, she's my first, so I didn't necessarily have that much space when I look back for her to be angry or be anxious. She'd get anxious, I'd get anxious, and then we would just be on this silly little staircase going up. That wasn't helpful to anyone. And when I do it now with her, it's like, I think, wow, what's my tolerance level? And especially right now, that's a really good trick for parents, is to check in with themselves. What's my tolerance? Wow, I just had this awful call. I saw that news clip. I'm already up here. Now my kid's up here. And you know what? My little buffer zone is like down to here. And that's okay to say to your child, like, I see you, I hear you. But right now, Mom, Dad, I'm over here and I don't have that much to give you. So that's one tip. To speak directly to that question is, can you give them age-appropriate things to do to help them come back to calm? And before you can even expect them to come back to calm, have this kind of conversation of, what does calm look like to you? What does calm feel like? Oh, and use yourself. I feel calm when I look out the window and see all the flowers blooming. I stop, I breathe, and I notice. Just something that simple is so important. And I think that in our life right now, parents are not having as many of those moments as I think generations before you all parenting right now with younger kids are, because of technology, because there's a part of our brain that's always looking for the next hit, for the next stimuli to come in, so that it's robbing us of our noticing the beauty around us and just being grateful in the moment. But equally as important and significant is, then we're not teaching our children how to have those moments to even.
It looks like Nancy's video has frozen.
Oh no.
Let's get to see if it comes back.
Can you still hear me?
Now we can. Yes, now we can. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm not sure if that really It didn't freeze. Okay, hello. So I also think that to answer that question in one other way is that it's really important to communicate with your child, especially if they're younger, that, okay, we're going to, what do you think? You think we're gonna try out 10 minutes, and in 10 minutes, you can be all as angry, you can punch the couch pillow, you can do all, but after 10 minutes, we're going to go into coloring, or we're going to do something quiet and listen to nice music, so that you're helping them learn how to transition into another place. I hope that helps. Is there another question? I know.
It looks like that there was a follow-up from that. Maybe do you have any advice if we do set limits, like a timer, for example, and the time comes to an end, but the zone doesn't come back to calm? Like at what point are we shifting gears, I think is what this person is asking.
So what's so interesting is, I would say is, don't get mad at me, is what's the concern? Can I ask and see if they answer? What's the concern in having a set time, right? Does that make sense? So is it the concern, is it too uncomfortable for you to have that child feeling so uncomfortable? Because often it's, what I'm trying to help parents see is it your issue? Is it their issue? Is it our issue? Okay, if it's our issue, you're entitled to have it. What do you need to do to take that, right? And then you can come through the lens of, hey, my goal is raising resilient children in general, especially right now in this era of lockdowns. How do I help my child the best I can to be a resilient, independent person? Because learning these things now in this tougher time will just help them so much in life. And it'll be such an amazing touch points that you can go back to years from now and be like, hey, remember when we went through that? You were so creative, you were so resilient, da 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 da. Difficulty with transitions, is that what someone's saying?
Yes.
So transitions are hard for all of us, some of us more than others. And I use this word so much, but it's get curious and try to help you understand, what is it about the transition that's so challenging? What is it? Is it fear? Like, I don't know what we're going to do later and it makes me so frustrated. Or I am afraid that I'm not going to finish drawing this pretty picture that I started and I really want to. Or older kids, that I'm playing this video game and I'm doing really well and you're going to take it away from me just when I'm doing so well, and that makes me so angry. Okay, so get curious. And then your job is to really employ them to come up with ways to make it easier. I know this might sound silly with a 3-year-old, but if you engage them with, okay, wow, I really noticed you have a hard time going from playing to cleanup to mealtime. Let's come up with ways that we can do it. Because one of the things that a lot of children who have transitions, a lot of adults, is, I like to call it, is some of us have higher sensitivity levels than others, right? So a child with any of the labels that we use a lot, anxiety, ADD, things like that, in my mind as a therapist, I go to the place of, oh, there's an interesting sensitivity going on in this child. So I don't label it as a negative. It's information for me. So for example, I'm someone who will always do this. If you can see me, I will always put my hand inside a shirt, pants before I put it on. Why? I'm not strange. I've just always been this person who is hypersensitive my whole life. So as opposed, it's a very easy self-care thing. I don't want to be uncomfortable when I'm doing something like this and be focused on the itch on my arm. So I stick my hand in, I make sure it's soft, I respect myself, and I get a shirt that I make sure is soft. We take that down think how interesting that would have been if I was raised that way, that, hey, you have these hypersensitivities. How can we help you, empower you, the child, to help make that world a more comfortable, easy place? And then parent and child partner together for that. Tell me, anyone out there, does that make sense? Any questions on that? I'm giving you all my tricks of the trade today. Let's see. So as anyone responds to that, we talked about this a little bit, but I also throw this in at family meetings too, is that create time where work is work and play is play. And I know I've been a little guilty of this too, is that, oh my gosh, I have all these extra hours to work on all these great projects I'm doing work-wise, that I'm not sort of putting in some time for, I love crafts, I should be painting, I could be, see the word I said, should, no shoulds here. Oh, Nancy, do you want to create some space this week to pull out your oil paints and start painting? Yes. My answer is yes. How am I going to throw that on that weekly plan and make sure I carve in a few hours for that? I think that's a good example, right? So maybe ask the kids, again, time for laughter, card games, arts and crafts, chores, responsibilities, things like that. What's something as the family that we want to work toward? And then something else I didn't put on the slide but fits perfectly here is, many times when I do family workshops, I often ask parents to think about, what is their job description? What does your job description as mom, dad look like? What does the job description of the child look like? And in that, I often ask, what is sort of the moral narrative? What is the moral code of your family? Who are you as a family? What are the things you stand for that you care about? And I have just learned this from the time I was a little girl, that anxiety, fear, we can always go play in those places. But what is something that helps so many of us is when we think about other people, when we do things for other people. So in that family time, how can we help other people that are struggling right now more than we are? How can we look toward the future? And hey, maybe we're a family who wants to get involved in building houses for people who need that. Fine, here, have those secret conversations about what are we as a family going to invest in. And you don't need to wait till your kid is in high school and you're thinking about your child applying to college and what's going to look good on the resume. I challenge parents to start it at the earliest age and make it the fabric. And I'm sure your synagogue has amazing opportunities for Tikkun Olam. So is that a good resource to go there? Anybody else? Any other questions there?
I will just shed a little Jewish light on this idea of making time for family. Many of our Jewish professional colleagues are talking about Passover coming, and we have a tradition of finding all the chametz, all the things that are not K for P, and removing them from our home. And one of my colleagues had suggested that we extend that finding the searching for the chametz to things in our home that maybe we haven't used in a while, things that are not bringing us joy, and how can we sort of extend and mash up spring cleaning with the searching for the chametz. And we're going to be bringing some tools to the families, so keep an eye out, everyone, for that.
That's great. That's a great idea. And I think just, sort of employing all that creativity that we all have. And it is certainly a very interesting time to be living, and that if we use all the resiliency that we all have, and it is a fascinating time when we think about all, like, as scary as it is, the fact that so many parents aren't rushing around. There are a couple other things I just want to make sure I brought home, if that's okay, is I beg you not to leave your children alone in their bedrooms for too long. Obviously, this applies to parents with older kids, but even fourth grade, third grade, there's nothing good comes from kids spending too much time alone, too much time on YouTube. If you and I were talking a month ago, I could tell you so many scary stories that had nothing to do with what's happening in the world now, of kids getting themselves into real trouble on the internet. So in that family meeting, not only do I want you to talk about the time on the screens, I want you to talk about where are people going, where are the history. Set down that you're going to go through the history with them. So I'm not big in snooping, but I want you to go through and say, oh, look, I found this great baking site. Oh, and with the kids who know that their parents check this stuff, they tend to not get themselves in quite enough trouble out there. So I don't know if that applies to the parents. So should we throw it out? Are there any other questions about anything? Also, please know that I'm here for people. This is what I'm here to do right now, is just offer advice and guidance. And if anyone was this helpful.
Yeah, Jen Smolenoff has just put a really nice note to you that I will just share. She was saying that they've always stuck with schedules, but they haven't used family meetings yet. They'll be implementing that today, and this talk about screen time was really helpful. Also, Nancy, in one of your earlier slides, you had talked about, or you wrote about, asking your children what they know, and maybe we can just touch briefly as we're starting to wind down about language that we can be using for children in talking about what we don't want them to be hearing on the news. Like, how can we talk to them about what's going on in the world right now?
Great question. Quick story about that. While I was on my walk, I have a family that I've become very friendly with. They have 2 little girls, and we always have this big hug whenever I see them. So they're little children, and every time I see them, they still go out to give Nancy the big hug. And it's so uncomfortable for me, because it's just not me to be like, no, you can't. And yesterday, you saw, and I just saw this look in this little girl's eyes, like, I just don't understand, Nancy. I think she's 6. Like, I just don't understand. And then the dad was saying stuff to me that was kind of scary. Not to me, but you could see the children's eyes. And I thought to myself, that's such a good short story to share with you all this morning, because I spoke right down to them. Like, I scrunched down, even though I wasn't so close. And I was like, just validating and acknowledging that this is scary. And that is really, really important. And 2 is, again, monitor how much information, and say that as scary as this is, the amazing thing about it is that if we do what we're supposed to do, and we stay in our little beautiful family, we are okay. We're okay. And then give them the concrete things. Leave their shoes off when they come home from a walk. Wash their hands. Not touch people when they see them on the street. But just being careful. Like, this little girl, her parents started talking to the other parents that were there, and there were scary words. Like, I don't know if I'm still going to have my job, and da-da-da. These kids were just staring there, looking at their parents, and they're watching. So on one hand, I do not fault these parents. It must be terrifying to think that they might be losing their job. But on the other hand, how we still have to notice that the children are listening. I don't know if that speaks to your question, right? And also, I guess with the coronavirus is less is more. It's always my tips, right? So ask them, what is their question? Are they worried how to get it? Are they worried about if they got it? If they think, oh my gosh, what if someone in my school had it? Take a calendar and go back. How many days have they been home? Looks like most people have been in the house, 7, 8, 9 days, right? And mark off, yep, well, it looks like we're in the clear, right? If we keep ourselves like this, we are really good. To me, that makes me feel really good. Like, hey, we're in the clear. Is there a way to find out, are most of the parents listening, or are there grandparents out there? How old are the children? Is anyone, or is it all age? There's no way to tell.
Yeah, no, I actually have the participant list, and it looks like we've got lots of people who either have at home or who are working with elementary and middle school age children.
I get it. So what are some of your concerns for your middle schoolers? Anyone have any specific concerns? Because that's such an interesting, challenging time to begin with in life, and such an important time where the children, you know, developmentally are separating and certainly have this strong desire to separate from their parents. And here we are saying, guess what? We're having all this family time. So, oh, thanks. People are showing us their kids' ages, right? Anyone have, that's where, speaking to the middle school years, that's where I see the most adventurous stuff happening, specifically with the phone, where there's, I have a whole chapter in my book, Lockdown, about the different apps that the kids go to hang out with. And one I've heard a lot about is Omegle, and that one should scare anyone. That one is basically, there's no age restriction. It's a live chat, so you can either text or video with the person, and people who go there, it's all for sexual, it's like virtual sex. Sorry, I can't filter that any better. And it's not that there's anything wrong with the kids who go there, that yearning, age appropriate, right? My generation kids would sneak and peek in a magazine. Well, now they just have this, can click in 2 seconds, and they don't, that's why I need you as the parents to have guidance, to have these conversations like, you know, there are some scary places. And if you do go there, you're not a bad person. Let's just talk about it. And then let's set up ways that you don't go to some of those places, things like that.
We have a family with an elementary schooler and a middle schooler who's saying that with the middle schooler, they're finding just a general lack of effort and interest. And I'm hearing that from a lot of parents too. Like, I can't get my kid out of bed. I can't get my kid to come down and eat. Any suggestions for maybe those middle school age kids?
So what do you think, you parents, what do you think is the reason? Why do you think your kid is not getting up? Do you think it's that they're sad? And that, I know this is probably not the most popular thing to say, but I do think there is a mourning phase that's happening right now, that we're mourning this life that we led. I know I wake up sometimes and it's like, oh my gosh, I just wanted to go to the gym. Like, you know, just silly things. And so is it that they're really sad? And if they are sad, that's where you need to come in with the structure. Not mean, not threatening, but maybe build in some kind of way of, I'm going to be careful with this word, but reward. But not reward like you're going to give them a candy bar. Like, as a family, we're going to get through this and we're going to work toward this. Maybe, you know, in a year from now, we're going to go on this great trip. We're going to go to Israel. We're going to go somewhere. Let's all work together toward this reward. How do we get there? Well, it starts right today. It starts today with us doing our part. And you need to get up, like, you know, you need to get up and get out, because it's not. And maybe it's, if that's not working, I don't know if you could do this depending on if you know some of the parents of your kids' middle school friends, is maybe have a 10 o'clock group meeting that you hold virtually at your dining room table, and that everyone needs to be dressed somewhat, not in pajamas, eat breakfast, and everyone's going to meet at 10 o'clock or 10:30 and maybe you do a group exercise together. Maybe you do, I know one of my girls is having all these virtual meetups with her camp friends, and she hasn't been in camp in years. And they're use something like that as like the carrot that you're dangling to get them up. And I know a lot of the kids I work with are telling me their parents have no idea that they're staying up till 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning. That brings up one of my other tips that I forgot to say is all phones should be plugged in downstairs or in your master bedroom. Do not go to sleep with your child having their technology full access. And I know that's a challenge because they watch TV on their computer, but you know what? If they want to watch TV, let them go downstairs. If you can control that, I promise you, you will get through this so much stronger, and your child and you will be healthier. Because, you know, my mom and dad used to say nothing good happens when kids stay out after 12 o'clock. I would tweak it now to say nothing good happens when the kids are on this after, like, a lot of the time, but certainly after parents are in bed sleeping. Does anyone have any other questions? Agree.
Yes. This is, so there's some agreement here about the grieving process for sure. And this is a good question. How do we explain to kids that some of us still need to commute into New York City and do that in a way so that they are not worried about our own safety or theirs, right? We're talking about this physical distancing for 14 days, and you know, we're checking off, we're almost in the clear, yet some parents are still, because of their work, the nature of their work, still need to be out there. How can we talk with them about that?
Great question, and thank you for still working and taking care of our world. One is I would want to help you create the rituals that you're doing to keep yourself safe. And then I want you to share that with your child. Well, I wear gloves when I go through the subway, or, you know what, instead of taking the subway, I'm actually walking that mile to work instead of being smushed in with people. I take off, you know, maybe you come in through the garage and you keep a change of clothes there, and you take your work clothes off, your work bag, everything off in the garage. You have a wipe or something that you can wipe off your pocketbook or whatever you need to bring in, or your backpack that you need to bring into the house, and then you put your clothes right into the wash. Your coat, you keep your coat out in the garage. It might sound silly that you're going overboard. That's a personal thing, but I think you giving the child something clear that you're doing. You immediately wash your hands downstairs. You make sure you use a towel that the rest of the family doesn't use. But that's a hard one, and really engage the child in the conversation of what are they afraid of? Where are their mind going to? And then use some of the techniques that we talked about a while ago of helping. Because the truth is, we can't control. I mean, this is a brutal lesson that a lot of kids are learning really fast, is that we cannot control the world. And it is scary at times, but what are the things we can control?
Awesome. Thank you. We have another question that just came in. Besides connecting virtually with others, a lot of people are lacking the physical touch, like high fives, hugs from your bestie. So besides us as parents and caregivers being mindful of giving some extra hugs and snuggles, is there anything else that you might be able to suggest?
Oh, that's such a great question, because I know for me, I've been thinking that too, that I think it's like finding the grace in these moments and finding the kindness in these moments. I've been thinking a lot personally about older people who live alone, and how I just take for granted that if I want a hug from my husband, I can go get a hug. And that maybe part of what we're learning is finding these things that we so took for granted. And how do we, you know, I've made sure, like, it's not a good substitute, but it's the best we can do, is having a family thread with all the cousins and the grandparents, and having those kind of things so that people can sort of have these connections. I have a high school friend group thread. I have these things. So I'm consciously thinking of how can I keep feeding and nourishing my soul.
Amazing. Thank you. And Jackie shared that her cousin has been commuting into the city and took a picture of an empty subway, and it made her feel much better. She shared that with all participants, and that answered the person's question too.
Right, right. And the fact that we're being smart and mindful and reminding our kids, and I'm reminding you all, is that we're going to get through this. And how we get through it is up to us. Like, right? If we celebrate our experience and celebrate our connections and spend time and bring our family closer together, because if you would have met me a few weeks ago, I would have told you it's the hardest time ever to be a parent. I feel for you, which is still true. And that everyone just needs to be more mindful and get to know each other and spend time, because I feel like there's such disconnect. So here's a chance in the strangest way that we get to be connected.
Awesome.
I love that. Our neighborhood is having a community porch sing tonight. Love that. That's great. As long as everyone stays away, right?
Yes. And the value of community that we have emphasized so much at Temple Emanu-El, we are really seeing new ways of people finding community and connecting with the community and sharing with the community. I want to be respectful of everyone's time and also of yours, Nancy. If anyone has any other questions that come up, be in touch with us. Nancy has shared how you can check in with her on social media.
Oh, I realized I didn't even so I didn't fill it out. So please join me on Nancy Kislin, Parenting Navigator. Nancy Kislin, Parenting Navigator, or just go to Nancy Kislin. It's my Facebook page. Same thing on Instagram. I have been out there doing a lot of things. Hopefully, maybe next year, we'll come and talk about Lockdown, my book, talking to your kids about school violence. But if anyone is interested, it looks like this. And other than the scary things about lockdown drills, it's mostly a parenting book. And I am here for you, and I hope you all have peace, calm, and health. And remember that we are here. We are a beautiful community to support each other, and I'm so glad we spent this time together.
Nancy, we want to thank you so much. When Rabbi Miller first connected us, we knew exactly what we thought we were doing. And as you mentioned, we quickly shifted gears. So I want to acknowledge and appreciate that we have completely changed the topic that we were originally talking about. I think this was really helpful for a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of new questions will come up as we continue to navigate this. So again, connect with Nancy. We will send out, I found you on Facebook, your parenting helper. So we'll send out that information via our school group, and I welcome anyone who has more questions to just get in touch and be in touch with us. And we will let all of you know when we know a little bit more about when we'll be able to be together, when we can reconnect with Nancy on our original topic, which again continues to be so important for when we are back together in our physical space. So Nancy, thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye.
Be well.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye, Nancy. Take care.
Bye. Call me if you want.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, bye.